All right, so it's time to crank up the velocity here and see how fast we can get some stuff moving with this CFE Black. Today are going to be some lightweight supersonic loads. So far, our powder's performed pretty darn well in subsonics, but it's an awfully bulky powder, and with these lightweight supersonics, we're going to be limited by case capacity more than anything. So it's all going to come down to how much powder we can cram in the case, I believe. We're going to be using CCI 450s, the small rifle magnum primers. These performed marginally better than the 400 and the 41 in our primer testing video. So we're going to go with those. And our first bullet is the 110 grain Hornady VMAX. This is a flat base, short little 110 grain 30 cal bullet that hopefully we can really get hauling some butt. And the second bullet, the 125 grain Nosler Ballistic Tip, is a polymer tipped boat tail. A little bit longer bullet, of course, it's a bit heavier. And this one, I'm not so sure how fast we're going to be able to get it going. Load data is going to come from the Hodgdon website. They've got the VMAX, and they show 22.5 as the starting charge, and that's already compressed. So the starting charge is compressed load. That's hilarious. 2168 is the velocity they show as the starting charge. The max charge is 23.7, and they show 2,303 feet per second. So that's not bad as far as velocity goes. 23.7 is a lot of powder. I don't know if you remember back to the first video where we were looking at this powder, I put 25 grains into a case, and it was like right up to the rim. So 23.7 is a ton of powder. The loads we're going to shoot are 22.5, which is their starting charge, up to 23.7, which is their max charge. So we're going to shoot the entire range of the Hodgdon recommended loads, and that comes out to doing 0.3 of a grain increments. The overall length is going to be 2.050. That's what they've got on their website, and I was eyeballing it a little bit earlier, and that looks about right. I wouldn't want to go a whole lot longer than that. You might be able to take it out to 2.1, but there's not a whole lot more that can be gained there by a longer overall length. I'm going to load up 25 rounds for each gun. We've got an 8.5 inch SBR, and we've got a 16 inch rifle. So we're going to shoot them in both and see how they perform. Now with the Nosler, also it's on the Hodgdon website. They show a starting load of 19 and a max load of 20. So 19 to 20 is the range that they show. So that's only a grain. Here's what I want to do. 4 loads. I want to do 19.1, 19.4, 19.7, and 20.0. So that kind of covers their 1 grain range. They show an overall length of 2.060. The problem is at that 20 grain charge, they only show as getting 1,945 feet per second, which is a little bit disappointing as far as velocity goes. What I want to try for our 5th load, so we're going to load up those 4 with their overall length and their charge weights. But what I want to do, I was eyeballing it earlier, I think I can stretch this guy out to 2.150 overall length. So that's 90 thousandths, and that's going to give us a little bit more capacity to jam some more powder in there. So at this point in the video, you're on the screen probably seeing what I'm eventually going to use as far as charge goes. But at this point, I don't know. I'm going to see how much I can jam in there and jam the bullet in at 2.150. So I'm hoping maybe we can fit 22 grains or something like that. I don't know. Maybe get a little bit more velocity. Now, that's not something I would necessarily recommend. It's pretty dumb. But looking at the pressures they show for this powder, all of these bullets, even up to the mid-range bullets, like the 175 grain bullet we're going to be testing, its max charge is a compressed load. So with these lighter bullets, it really just seems to be, jam as much powder in as you want and good luck. Or at least that's the way I read it. I may blow my face off. I don't know. But we're going to find out. That's what makes videos interesting, right? That's what everybody's waiting for, is when is this idiot finally going to blow his face off? Today might be the day. So, that's pretty much it. that's the overview of what's going on. I've got brass that's already prepped and primed and ready for powder and bullet. So won't be a whole lot of detail here on the loading. I'll probably focus most on that Nosler load where I'm trying to stretch that overall length. So, all right, I'm gonna need to start weighing some charges. So I've run into my first minor issue, which was not totally unexpected because I've loaded these VMAX bullets before, and because of their flat base, they can be very hard to get started. Show you, yeah, like they just absolutely do not want to get started. So what I generally end up having to do is you're basically just putting the bullet up into the seating die, and then it's just flopping around, and you're relying on the bullet seating die to straighten everything out and get it started. Well, it ends up working, but the problem you have, see if I can get a view of it here. The one on the right, you see that little bit of copper there. These first couple, I tried seating them just normal and ended up shaving a little bit of copper off the bullets. So what I've done is pull out my universal expanding die, and I'm just running through, running all of my cases through, putting a little bit of flare on them, and then once you do that, then your bullet just plops right down in there. No problem. So I'm always quick to pull out the flaring die whenever I run into problems like that, because I hate, you know, boogering up bullets or feeling like I've, you know, disrupted the integrity of the jacket. I'd much rather flare the case and then, you know, just close things back up with my crimp die later and feel good about the seating job. And with these, this case fill is so far up in there that I actually had some powder already measured out, and I had to dump it out because just putting it into the flaring die with the powder in there, the flaring tip hits the powder and makes a mess. So whatever. But that's what I'm doing, running through the cases for the VMAXs and flaring them just a little bit. It won't be a problem with the Noslers, I don't think, since they're a boat tail. Okay, so I got our first 10 rounds loaded up with 22.5 grains. And instead of slowly working my way up, I went ahead and jumped to the highest charge because I wanted to have a look at the case fill. And this is nuts. Yep, right there's our case fill. Not much room to breathe there. So the seating die is still set. I actually did, you know, our 10 test rounds plus another 10 ciders. So it's very consistently given us 2.050. So I want to seat this guy and see what overall length it gets us. I suspect it will grow significantly. Yeah, that bullet getting a little bit deformed by the die. 2.064. So the overall length grew about 14 thousandths. And let me show you what I was talking about. See that ring around the die where my, you can see that ring around the bullet where the die, where the seating stem kind of pushed it in. So I suspected we would see that, but still doesn't make it any better. So let's take the die down 15 thousandths. See what we get. We might just leave it where it's at, let them be a little bit long. 2.052, so that's actually not too bad. Now, and when you're compressing this hard, usually these spherical powders aren't too bad. They'll usually give you reasonable consistency. But sometimes like extruded powders, whenever you're compressing them, 2.054, that's not too bad. Spherical powders, or yeah, what the hell was I saying? Yeah, spherical powders are usually okay, but sometimes extruded powders, you can end up with quite a bit of variation just because like the way the granules of powder are compressing differently from load to load. Yeah, these all have a really distinct ring around the bullet, so I don't dig that, man. I don't know if it'll make much difference in our group, but I won't be surprised if it does. So that was about it. Just wanted to turn on the camera and kind of document how much overall length difference we got as we got more compressed. So I'll probably see you guys when we get to the Nosler and I try to jam that guy full. All right, everything's gone really well with the Noslers. Just look at that. Man, that's a beautiful looking 300 blackout, isn't it? Love that green tip. I'm down to the last 10 where we want to try to stretch things out and see how much powder we can use. I'm going to try 22 grains. That's our case fill right there. So we got a little bit to work with. Yeah, I'll show you where the normal seating depth is with these. About right there. So we're going to stretch this out just a touch, and our powder fill is there. So it shouldn't be bad. It shouldn't be much compression at all, really. Nowhere close to what we were doing with the VMAX. And I've kind of been pondering this situation. Oh, one thing I don't want to forget to tell you. I went ahead and flared these as well. The first one that I seeded, it seeded really hard and seemed to pick up a little bit of copper off the jacket as well. I don't want that. I want them to seed in there nice and easy and go in smooth. So I just went ahead and flared all these cases as well. It's good to have a universal flaring die laying around. If that's not in your toolbox, you should definitely add one. I'll add a link in the description. They're super cheap, but it's always good to have one. But what I've been wondering is maybe they didn't go all that compressed with this bullet because we're going to see that it's maybe soft and it's going to deform the bullet. I don't know. Only one way to find out. Okay, the goal I had in mind was 2.150. So that's only 14 more thousandths. There's 14. That probably won't get us there because of the compression. .150, perfect. So 22 grains, 2.150. The bullet didn't get mangled at all. It actually looks great. So I wonder why the heck they stopped at 20. I may end up blowing my face off, and it's my own fault if I do, but that seemed to work just fine, and that's 2 grains above max. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to get these seated, and we'll be ready to head out to the range. All right, there we are, folks. $50 for one gun, $50 for the other. The other interesting thing, I have managed to make it through our first pound of CFE Black. This is all that remains. Just a little bit. Maybe 5 grains. Tell you what we'll do. Take this out on the range. Dump it out for our fallen reloading homies. Let's get out there. Okay, we're going to start out with the 8.5 inch SBR. This is an 8.5 inch Rainier Ultra Match barrel, 1 in 8 twist. Got my Magneto Speed chronograph. I've got my Silencer Co. Omega suppressor. And this is a 4-16 by 44 Vortex scope. First of all, though, we need to take care of some business. If we could just have, a moment of silence. Amen. All right, so let's get started. First bullet is the 110 grain Hornady VMAX. Our first load is 22.5 grains. I did shoot a couple to confirm our 0, so I think we're going to be pretty close. So let's see how they shoot. The range is 100 yards. All right, I like that start. Next up is 22.8 grains. Tell you what, guys, this is some really good shooting for my SBR. This is really good shooting. Awesome standard deviation numbers and really good groups. This is an encouraging start. Okay, 23.1 grains. $23.4. Last up, 23.7. I'm not all that surprised to see that top group open up. If you'll remember, we were compressing so hard at that point that the bullets were really getting deformed with the ring around them, so I suspect that might be part of what was going on there, but boy, those lower charges sure shot awesome. Okay, next up are the 125 grain Nosler Ballistic Tips. I only had 50 of these and I loaded them all for test ammo, so I don't have any sighters. I'm hoping these are going to hit to the same spot as the 110s. We'll see. First up is 19.1 grains. All right, not quite as good a start as the AMAX, or the VMAX. Have I been saying AMAX the whole time? That was the VMAX. Whatever. All right, next up is going to be 19.4 grains. $19.7 grains. $20 grains. All right, now it's time to get silly. We stretched our overall length to 2.150, and we've bumped our charge up 2 full grains to 22.0. See if it blows my face off. Hey, I'm still alive. All right, let's go chase down that piece of brass. Piece of brass looks completely fine. Primer's a little bit flattened, but still mostly nice and round. Just looks like normal. So let's see if it'll group. So that was the best group of the lot. So was that because of the overall length? Was it because of the higher charge? I don't know. We'd have to test more with that. The standard deviation numbers with this powder are just silly. Just absolutely silly. Excellent. Beyond excellent. The best I've ever seen. The most consistent I've ever seen. So let's switch out to the 16-inch gun, see if it likes it as well. Okay, time to switch over to the 16-incher. First up, 22.5 grains with the 110 grain Hornady VMAX. This is an AR Stoner barrel with a 1-in-8 twist. I don't think I mentioned that. So next up is 22.8 grains. I like what I'm seeing so far. Next up, 23.1 grains. $23.4. $23.7. All right, let's readjust the target and see how the Noslers do. Okay, first load with the 125 Ballistic Tips is 19.1 grains. $19.4. $19.7. All right, I'm going to bring the scope up 1 minute just to make sure we get these shots on camera. Kind of creeping low there on me. All right, next up, 20 grains. Okay, so it's time to get crazy again. This is 22 grains, so we're making a 2 grain jump, stretching our overall length out to 2.150. So let's see if it blows up our gun. All right, outstanding. Man, I like it. Let's get back in the house to the bench and let's celebrate. Okay, so how did our powder do with some light supers? It did freaking outstanding. I'm very happy with the results today. I'll tell you what, let's look at it by bullet. So the first was our 110 grain Hornady VMAX. The 8.5 inch gun, our best group here was a 9/10 of an inch, and our worst group was this top one at 2.9, where, you know, we had bullet seating issues, or, you know, we were just putting too much pressure on that bullet during the powder compression, and I think that's probably what caused this to open up. So, except for this, where we had a known issue, it was 0.9 to 1.4 inches. That is really good for my SBR. Really good. So this powder is hanging with, as far as accuracy goes, it is hanging with the very best supersonic powders I've tried. Which, to be honest, my favorite supersonic powder is Winchester 296 or Hodgdon H110. And this is hanging right with it as far as accuracy goes. Now, we're lagging behind a couple hundred feet per second. So here we got up to 1964, but, you know, if we back it off to the last of our good groups, it was 1900 feet per second. With Winchester 296, you're looking at 2150, 2200 as far as velocities I can get out of my 8.5 inch gun. So it's definitely not a high velocity powder, and that's not what it's designed for. You know, that's why we have Winchester 296. But very happy with its accuracy. Very, very happy with its accuracy out of the SBR and the 110 grain VMAX. Now, the 16 inch gun only got better. You know, the 16 inch gun normally shoots better than my 8.5 inch gun, and it definitely showed that here by a little bit. Our first group was about 7/10 of an inch. And then a couple, then in 1 incher, a little over an inch. But overall, very, very happy. Very happy. Worst group of 1.6 inches. I'll take that any day of the week. Same deal with the 16 incher. You know, we're lagging behind a couple hundred feet per second. We got up to, you know, a little over 2,200 feet per second. Well, with Winchester 296, I can get this gun up a little past 2,400 feet per second with Winchester 296. So same deal here. Very happy with accuracy, which is all we can ask for out of this powder. The standard deviations were just goofy. They were outstanding. They were almost all of them were single digits. The majority of our groups today had single digit standard deviations. That's just awesome. So I'm interested to try more supers with this powder and see. I think the right bullet combination with this guy, you could have a crazy accurate combination. I think this is going to be a great accuracy supersonic powder. All right, let's move over to the 125 grain ballistic tips. The 8.5 inch gun didn't really care for them. We had a couple groups at 1.4 inches. Actually, our crazy 22 grain load had a 1.4 inch group. But otherwise, you know, we were in that 2 to 3 inch range. except I think we probably got lucky here with one that was a 1.4 incher. Still very good standard deviation numbers, outstanding standard deviation numbers, but I think it's just a bullet that doesn't work well with this powder and barrel. Over to the 16-inch gun, it shot a little bit better, but still not great. 1.2 inch was our best group, and 2.1 inches was our worst. So, you know, whatever. That's mediocre, I would say, for this barrel, you know, for this gun. And definitely not as good as our the 110 grain VMAX showed. So our crazy 22 grain charge, with the 16 incher, we were able to get to 2,000 feet per second there. Almost 2,100 feet per second. And back with the 8.5 inch gun, it got us a little over 1,800 feet per second. That's certainly not bad. You know, that's respectable velocity. But, you know, it's not what you would get out of the higher velocity powders. Which is no surprise, and certainly I'm not knocking CFE Black for that. So overall, I am very happy with the performance in the light bullets. I can't wait to try more. I think there's going to be a super accurate combo out there, I bet. And great option. Those standard deviation numbers just blew my mind. Just absolutely blew my mind, and I think it's the best I've ever seen as far as just consistently. Our worst standard deviation number was 17.5, and that was with the 16-inch gun. The 16-inch gun didn't have numbers quite as good as the 8.5. The 8.5, out of 10 loads we tested, there was only one double-digit standard deviation, and it was 10.4. So 10.4 was the worst standard deviation in the 8.5 inch gun. That's crazy. That's just absolutely crazy. So that's got me excited. I think this is going to be a good accuracy powder here with supersonics. So, all right, the next video is going to be our heavyweight supers, our 168 AMAX and our 175 Sierra Match King. I can't wait to see how those guys shoot. I got a feeling they're going to shoot pretty good as well. So that'll be the next video, and I will see you guys then.